Okay, here we are again then for another episode of the Martial View, and this time we're with the awesome Simon Morrell. Hi Simon, how are you?
Hello Dan, I'm fine, thank you. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
I'm sure most people in the industry kind of know your name, have heard of you, things like that, but for anyone that hasn't, could you just give us a little brief introduction to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, next July it'll be my 40th year in martial arts, so I'm feeling my age now, I'm feeling my bones. Started off when I was 15 in Shotokan. I think like most people, I started off because I was bullied, but my bullying was extreme, where it lasted into my early 20s and it became violent assaults, became agoraphobic, panic attacks, etc. And I think it was martial arts that rescued me. I've had a good life in it. I've gone from karate to kickboxing, freestyle wrestling, Krav Maga, and we put it all into one package now, and we kind of, if you like, we sell it as complete combatives. So that's going all right. Brilliant.
Okay. We've kind of touched on it very, very briefly there, then. So the reason that you got started in martial arts is obviously the bullying. This is not uncommon, I'd say, in martial arts for people that are being bullied and want to develop some confidence and fitness angles, things like that, as well as some self-defense. But as you said, your bullying was very extreme. So how did it begin, if you don't mind?
Yeah, it's funny. I was when people hear the story, a lot of people say, "Oh, you don't remember 5 years of age." But it started when I was 5 years of age in a local school in Rill, and I was kind of bullied. Well, I come from Merseyside, and we moved to a Welsh town, and it was kind of, we were a rarity. Yeah. And I think it was, first of all, I was bullied because of my accent. I had goofy teeth. I was skinny. People will bully you for anything, won't they? Yeah, and I remember a kid coming up to me 5 years of age, and he spat in my face, and he gave me a crack around the head, and he called me a spaz. And you know what, Dan? Again, people, even my own family members, didn't really believe it, but my head from that second went down. Yeah. And all through that school, I think I lasted in that school 3 or 4 years, and it was a torture, to be honest with you. Even the teachers. Now I know it's all good old-fashioned discipline. But I strictly remember we had a teacher who was a nun, and I remember asking her, I didn't understand a sum. It wasn't even maths, I'm that old, it was sums. I didn't understand the question, and she made me get up in front of the class, and she made me make a fist, and she had I think it's called an engineer's ruler with a metal stripe down it, and she whacked me across the knuckles, which I get was discipline, but when a kid has the courage to say you don't understand anything, and again my head went down. And then it escalated, and I left that school, moved to a new primary school. But for me, I think the mould was set. Yeah. The new school was okay for a while, and then I moved to high school, and you really are a small fish in a big pond. Yeah, definitely. Without going too much into it, it's all in the book. I had a father who was a mouth, and he ran a local business, and that brought an awful lot of issues. Okay. People maybe who he had upset or this, that, and the other. And I think the first time I really felt it graphically in terms of violence, I was 15, and I took a liking to a girl, and she had gone out with a guy previously. It's all Romeo and Juliet nonsense, isn't it? It's all kid stuff. He was a nutter, and I didn't know. And people said, "Oh, you can't really say that about him," but he was. And I was out with her for, Dan, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. It was not the marriage of the year, but he took umbrage to me. Is that the right word? And for 6 months, he made my life an absolute misery. He came at me with a knife, tried to cut me up. 15, I mean, a knife crimes now, I know it's prevalence, but excuse the train, that's Julie going past in the lawnmower. And he would think nothing of turning up at my front door, knocking on the door, and saying, "I don't care if your parents are in, I'll kill your parents as well." I spent my 15 to 16, my company was the soundtrack to Quadrophenia and the Wanderers. I just stayed in my house, didn't go out. Every time I had to go out, I'd look out for him, and he would pop up one way or the other, beatings, this, that, and the other. And eventually, my father got hold of him, and this was really chilling down. I think I was 16, and I should have been. I'd been training, and I couldn't find any courage. I should have stood up for myself, but I just didn't know how to. And like I say, I was I was involved in Shotokan, but still didn't have any heart, or still didn't. And it chilled me. My dad got hold of him, and my dad said, "You're going to leave him alone." And he said, "Mr. Morrell," he said, "when he's 18. And my dad said, "What do you mean by that?" And you know what, Dan, to this day, it still chills in my neck, yeah? He said, "I'm going to kill him." He said, "Because when he's 18, he's out of your control." And my dad was, he thought he was a bit of a name. I remember my dad stepping back from him, and I thought, whoa, this is bad, yeah. And then someone came to see me and said he was a skinhead or a mod. He used to wear the fishtail parka, and he was armed inside of it. And this is, we got my age, this is 30 odd years ago, and he was tooled up with Stanley knives, screwdrivers, this, that, and the other. And he was in court all the while for violent offense, and I believe he went away. But then that just kind of, in the end, that was like, that did me.
Yeah.
Maybe my first set of friends at 16, and I think the humiliation I felt because they would say, I'd start drumming, and they would say, come down and meet us today, and we'll get together and all that. And I couldn't even walk down the high street. And that's when really the panic attacks, where they became, even before it was trendy to have panic attacks. Shouldn't say that, but you get what I mean, yeah. And I was 18, and then it spilled over into the pubs then. And people were like, you know, well, your dad's so-and-so, and you're this, and you're that. And then it was, you know, beatings. And it was more, I'd say there was a lot of physical violence, but a lot of it was mental.
Sure.
You know, a lot of it was like, I remember the one time I kind of stood up for myself, and I'd give a lad a crack, you know, for whatever reason. I was never a violent person, I was a good kid. And I give a lad a crack, so I had enough. I was about 18, and it caused so much ripples. There was police involvement, and I was told I was going to lose my job, and I was going to be made homeless. And that plays on you down that, well, hang on, damned if I do, damned if I don't.
Yeah.
You know, I spent 18 years not looking after myself and relying on other people to do it for me. Even my sister did my bidding for me. And the one time I do it, and I'm
got his reputation for it.
And then I met Julie, and I met Julie. I had friends on before we became girlfriend and boyfriend, but I sort of teamed up with her again when I was day before my 19th birthday. And to be honest, I never looked back. I think she saw something, whatever it is. She said, "You've got to do something about this." You know, at one time, not ashamed to admit it, it's all there in black and white. At one time, I was so weak. You know, I was 20, and she would dress me in the morning. Couldn't get out of bed, and she would dress me, and she'd put me in the car and drive me to work. And I'd sleep because it was escapism. Yeah, because I had a lot of trouble in my dad's factory as well, you see, from various people. Not all of them. Some people looked out for me. Some people were lovely, but some people weren't so lovely. And she'd wake me up, and she'd say, right, I'll pick you up at 5 o'clock. And my day would be like antidepressants, anxiety. You'd feel like you were swimming in treacle. And she'd pick me up from work, take me home, feed me, and I'd just sleep again. And then in the end, we both sat down, and she said, she found me a book on anxiety. And she said, you know, you've got to do something. And I joined my friend John Lynn. He was, everyone knows John Lynn, the merit badge guy. He was my first sensei. After I'd left Shotokan, beg your pardon, he was my comeback, if you like. Okay. And then I plodded along, and then for whatever reason, people said, you know, you're okay at this. And then I started to take it serious. And then all of a sudden I was competing. I think the main thing it gave me, I could look people in the eye, I could hold conversations. I started thinking, you know, I'm not an idiot, I'm not a clown. And then I won the Welsh Nationals, and I'm like, wow. And then all of a sudden I'm in the car on my own. I suppose it's not a done thing nowadays. I didn't mean it in any disrespect to John or any other instructors, but I'm getting in the car and going away competing and fighting on my own, just Julie and I. And big turning point in my life when I was early 20s, and we went to a tournament in Manchester, and the door burst open and all these lads came in with skipping ropes and focus pads, and it was Alfie Lewis's lot.
Right.
And I went, I want to be over there. Now, John's a good friend of mine. It's not, I want to be over there.
Yeah. And
Julie said, we'll be over there. And then we took our time and we contacted Alfie and went from there. And I think it's known in the industry. I think certain people know it. Flying, absolutely flying, training 5-6 times a week, teaching at my own club now as brown belts, competing. And 6 months before my brown belts, it just absolutely caved in. Saturday night, and I had a massive panic attack. And I said to Julie, I don't know who I'm trying to fill. I said, who am I to be a black belt? Who do I think I am? And I know whose voice that was in my head. You know, it was all the people that went before. Yeah. It was a certain person. And I'd read a lot of Jeff Thompson stuff, and he was like, if you're a Liverpool fan, he was my Stephen Gerrard. If you're a music fan, he was my Springsteen.
Sure.
And she said, read all his books again. Hope he doesn't hear this. I said, nah, a lot of rubbish. You know, I was in denial. A lot of rubbish, they can't help me.
Yeah.
And then for a couple of weeks I was depressed, and then one Saturday morning the phone rang and it was Jeff. And Julie had found his address and written to him just when Jeff was on the brink of being big.
Sure.
And wrote to him, and I thought it was a friend taking the mick, basically, you know, having a laugh at my expense. I said, this was a real cruel trick. And he said, no, he said, it's Jeff. And he said, you can do your black belt. And he said, and I've read your story. And he said, and what's happened to you? He said, but your black belt is going to be, and I don't want to come across as a smart aleck here, Dan. He said, your black belt is going to be bigger than a black belt for you. It's going to change your life.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my head around it. And I sat down and talked to Julie, and we're both emotional. I said, yeah, okay. So a few months later, in front of Alfie Lewis, the morning of my grading, the Saturday morning, letterbox goes. Jeff had phoned me quite a bit to top me up. Letterbox goes, and it's a good luck card to him. And you think, you know what, I'm all right. I got Julie, I got Jeff. All them people who thought I was whatever it was, they don't count.
The people in your corner.
So I got people in my corner, and I went and did the black belt. Failed miserably, no, I didn't. Passed the flying colours. And other than a few wobbles now and again that are all in an everyday warrior. Yeah. So here I am. And that's what happened with me. Getting the black belt, there was a backstory to that. There was and again, I'm not trying to sell the book at all, I don't mean that, but it's in the book, so I don't want to spoil it for people.
Go ahead, sell it.
A guy, say again, sorry?
Go ahead, sell it, plug it.
No, but I don't want to spoil it if anyone's reading it. Yeah, there was a local guy who's a good friend of ours, and he was he turned bad, turned drug dealer, and I detested it. And I had 2 young children at the time. He lived next door to us, and he was dealing, and he bought heavies in. I thought, I'm not having it again. And again, it was Mr. Thompson who spoke to me. I said, I'm not having it again. I'm not having anyone push me out of my own house.
Yeah.
So we butted heads, and in the end, he left. And he apologised for it. He left. Went on for 2 years. He had attack dogs, and he had people 4 o'clock in the morning banging on our windows, and people phoning us this and that. I said, it doesn't work anymore, because when you've been where I was, it doesn't work anymore, and you're certainly not going near my children. You're certainly not going near my wife. And in the end, him and 6 guys came for me on a Sunday afternoon in our house in Abergele, and they just turned up, and they right across our drive, like someone out of the bloody film. And I said to Julie, I'm going out. And she said, I'll come with you. And she put the 2 kids away, only babies. Luca was 5, Si was 3, maybe even younger than that. Because you've seen my kids at the awards, yeah? So you know what I'll think of my kids, as we all do. And I went out and I said, I don't know what you're doing here. I said, because there's nothing for you at all. Well, we've come to, I said, I'm going to interrupt you there. I said, there's nothing for you at all. I said, you need to. And the guy went, yeah, all right. And they turned and they went. And I went, not happening again. And they turned and they went. And I went inside and had a bit of a wobble, but it didn't matter because I didn't wobble in front of them. I wobbled in front of Julie, And 2 days later, the guy, we were driving out of our cul-de-sac, and the main guy pulled up, and he said, we're clearing out. And I said, you realise you're not welcome here, and you realise there's nothing for you. And he went, I apologise to you. He said, we're clearing out. And he did a runner. He did a runner owing me money, but that was irrelevant because we got a lot more value for it, out of it. But he went, and that was that. And we sort of cleared the neighbourhood up, if you like. And then if things are going great, I bought my family's business. And other stuff happened in my life that didn't go very well again. And I think the message I'm perhaps trying to say is, when you think you're at your top, you've got to be careful. You know, you've got to look over your shoulder because you think, I'm untouchable. Not in an arrogant way, Dan. I'm not that way at all, But things happened in my business that people were trying to ruin my business. I lost my gym. It started off like that. And it just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed and got bigger. And, you know, I'm going to be, it's okay to be straight for here, isn't it? I started drinking too much, far too much. And in the end, the one person in the world I don't want to upset is Julie. And she said, I'm done. She said, I'm done with you. I said, no, I get that. And I slept on the floor of my gym, the place we rented. And she said, give me one more chance. And she said, one more chance. And she told me a lovely story about how when our kids are growing up, what we're supposed to do with our lives together. And she said, that's not going to happen because you're going to die. I'm only trying to be honest, Dan,
Yeah, of course.
And I said, all right. We went to the doctor and he said, don't stop. Okay, you've got to do it slowly. But no, I'm bloody Simon Morrell, aren't I? Simon Morrell by now does what he wants. He said, 1 glass of wine, and I stopped, and the withdrawal was incredible.
Wow.
And later on, I actually saw a psychiatrist. I told her what was going on, and she said, "No wonder you drink." And then she went, "I shouldn't have said that." I said, "It doesn't matter."
Yeah.
But later on, I was talking to a mental health practitioner, and they said it wasn't the year or the 2 years before; it was everything that built up on you. And people suggest I had PTSD, but the withdrawal was hallucinations. The police came to my house. They said, "We're going to take you to hospital." 7 police officers took me to hospital, and then I remember sitting there thinking. And funny enough, it was my father who said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "You're going for your 4th dan, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And I came out of hospital, threw the drink away, and 4 months later got my 4th dan, fought for my 4th dan, got myself sorted out, and that's all in here. Available at Waterstones.
Yeah,
so that's the story behind the book, if you don't mind me sharing that with you.
No, of course not. What made you decide to write the book then in the first place? Was it almost cathartic in a way of you releasing it and getting it out, or?
Yeah, you mean the first one? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it was. I wasn't very academic. I didn't have a good education. Too busy dodging bullets. But I could always write, and the one subject I did okay at was English literature writing.
Sure.
English language, everyone is. That's the only qualification I got. And then it was Jeff, and he said, after it all happened, he said, "Write something down." He said, "And send it me." He said, "Because there's a story here." And I wrote something called Fear, False Evidence Appearing Real. And Jeff said, "I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks." And the following day he phoned me and he went, "Wow," he said. And he said, "Dan, this isn't me." He said, "You're a writer." He said, "We're going to give this to Bob Sykes." He said, "We're going to get it into the magazines." He said, "But you have a book in you." And I went, "Nah." And he went, "You know what, Simon?" He said, "It's like your black belt all over again. You keep going." Nah. He said, "Write a book." And I wrote it, and it took a long while to get it right. I didn't know how to write a book. And Jeff helped me, Judy helped me, and we got it out there. And it's gone to, if I'm honest, it's gone to kind of 7 or 8 different editions. So we thought, yeah, that's all right. The first time we wrote it the first time we published it, 20 odd years ago, people wrote and said, "What a great story, but your spelling's awful." Because there was no kind of spell check or no editors or.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, all right, so we learned from that. Sorry, go on.
No, go on.
So yeah, we learned from that, and we did it again, and we did it again, and then we finally got it out there where people said, "Yeah, it's where it should be." We're speaking to a couple of film companies. We've had a few false starts on that, but it's like your black belt, isn't it, Dan? It's like your first book. You have false starts on everything. We've had people saying, "Yeah, you'll be in Hollywood this time next year," and you believe them because you want to believe them.
Yeah.
And then someone says to you, "That's not going to happen, Simon." So you go, "Yeah, okay." So we're still at that point now. We've got a couple of film companies we're talking to.
Good.
And to be honest, Dan, if I think that's kind of my last big fear. That's my last kind of, I got my 7th dan earlier this year off Peter Considine. I've competed on every level, spoke this, that and the other. So my last big fear, I think, is getting this film out. And then I like to say I'm done. Judy goes, "You'll think of something else." And that's all right, I'll think of something else.
Yeah,
so that's kind of where we are with the film projects and the books and all that.
Amazing. When you were at your lowest then, I suppose, it's such an inspiring story because obviously you've done so much now and you've kind of come out the other side of it stronger. So completely hats off for that. But how did you find the energy, just to do that? And was there a specific turning point, I suppose, where you were kind of like something needs to change? Was it a gradual process of just every day maybe getting a little bit better or having good days, bad days? How did it work for you? Can you remember?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. It was both really. The massive turning point was the phone call off Jeff. If you had to say to me what one point in your life, that was Jeff's phone call, yeah. But I think I read a great book by a lady called Claire Tweaks. It's about anxiety and nervous disorder. And she has 4 sayings, and it's let time pass. Because when I was really poorly, I'm going from like 15 to 20, I willed every day to be better.
Yeah.
But of course, when you will to be better, you make yourself worse. So I had to say, okay, sometimes I accept today's not going to be a good day, but I'll get through it.
Yeah.
And then I think, funny enough, I think taking my green belt, and I had a good outing. I was really, really nervous for it. Really nervous. I was in shock. I think my 3rd or 4th belt. And it was just one of them days where everything goes your way, yeah? And that's when I thought, I can do this. You know, people patting me on the back, people who wouldn't even give you the time of day before, shaking your hand. I thought, yeah. And then so off my green belt, I probably trained for a year off that with the energy. And then something else knocks you, as it knocks us all. And then something else comes along. Another massive point for me, after my black belt, we did that in Manchester, Jeff said, you need to come down to Coventry. I was like, yeah, okay. And he said, no, he said, you've got to come down and do some instructors courses. I said, all right. I went down on my own. And when I got down there, I'm in this room, I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing here. You know, the people down, you're one of them yourselves, they were fighters, the bodyguards, they were boxers. I knew nobody. All I knew was Jeff. I knew Peter fleetingly and Julie. And of course, Jeff's off teaching. And I thought, when we have a partner, what do I do? Because I haven't got anyone. So come along. I'm sure you've been there, Dan, you know, right, partner up. And I'm stood there for face the colour of beetroot. And I put my hand up.
Yeah.
I'm looking at him going, what am I doing? I said, anyone need a partner? And funny enough, I went up to a guy, yeah, and he had his little group there. And I said, can I jump in with you lot? I said, I've got no one, like. And he looked at me like I was, and I'm very surprised because BCA isn't about this. And he went, no. And I thought, oh my God. And I was like, shh. And these lads, right, I'm being hypocritical, shaved head tattoos. And he went, you on your own? And I said, yeah. He said, did he just knock you back? And I said, yeah, it doesn't matter. They said, no, jump in with us. And I said, but you've got even numbers, so I'm going to be the odd one out. They said, it's all right, we'll take it in turns. And they taught me so much. You know, they looked like they could snap you in half, and they were beautiful people. So after the first instructor's course, I trained for 6 months off that. You know, you're like, wow, something else.
Got the buzz going, yeah.
You got the buzz going. And then Julie phoned me, and she said, Jeff's been on the phone for you. Show me him work. She said, he wants you to go down, do your second down with him. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I thought Justin Gray, Lee Evans, trained for all the guys down there, Anthony Summers. And going down there on my own, just Julie and I again, was, I mean, from where we lived at the time, Abergele to Coventry was 2.5 hours. But it felt like days. Yeah. You know, it felt like days. And we got there, and we were at the 87 Centre, and Tony Summers picked me up and took me into Coventry, where Jeff was. Bob Sykes was there filming it. I actually said to him, he said, do you mind if I film? And I said, no, but get me good side going out the window. And I got bloody knocked out. Famous last words. But they brought me round, and Jeff said, I've done a lot of the animal day, a lot of the wrestling, sorry. I've done a lot of pad work, and I think it was the third round. It was a 10 3-minute full contact rounds, and they kept swapping Justin for Lee, and Justin knocked me out in the third round. And they said, you can go home and come back and start again from where you are now. Sometimes it's to my detriment, Dan. I'm a bit too honest. I honestly think if I'd have gone home, I don't think I'd have gone back. Yeah. So I had to go, no, I'll carry on. And the 7 rounds I fought in a, you know, like someone had sort of thing bag over my head. But I got through it, and then people were like, wow, you went down to Coventry to do your second down with Jeff. And I said, and I was like, yeah, that's all right. Got knocked out, but you know, happens, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And so that was kind of that was another moment where it was gradual leading up to that, obviously. But that moment when you get it was like, that's going to change me. So I think I kind of went offside of your question there, but sometimes it was a trek, and sometimes moments were like, yeah, that was that moment.
Fantastic. You know? Cool.
We had Alfie came up. This is one of my other top 10 moments, I think. Alfie Lewis came up to do my 6th dan to our gym in St. Asaph, and it was a physical grading. But my daughter did it with me. She did a 3rd dan.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and that was like, wow. So for 6 months, Luca and I, she's named after the song, Luca. Luca and I trained together, sometimes 3 times a day. Oh, amazing. And we did it together, and we had work together, and we sparred. She sparred her partners, I sparred mine. And for Alfie Lewis, who gave me my first dan, to go to Luca, B+ was like, wow. Nice. I think that meant more to me than my 6th dan. So
oh, fantastic, good.
Yeah, so that was all right.
What about the new book then, or the semi-new book? I think you said it's been out for 3 weeks now.
British Warrior. Like I say, it's from bully to black belt in its entirety. And we say it on the cover, so we're not going to, people don't buy it twice. It's an everyday warrior, which is the drinking. The gangsters that were brought upon me by my father that led me to drink, the violence again, which was, so they're the two books that we are hoping to get into the film. But the third book in there, which is a lot of short stories, My Fear, Your Fear, you will recognise, you personally, Dan, will recognise some of the people in there.
Okay.
And I've respected people, I've changed their names, I haven't slagged anybody off, I've only put people in there that are good people. You'll recognise a few friends, mutual friends of ours.
Okay.
But I think the first chapter was the first time I saw bravery, and it was when I was 15 in high school, and there was a kid my age, and he was, if I'm honest, he wasn't bullied, but he was probably on the same rung as me on the social scale.
Okay.
And all the peacocks are going round in this bit crude, so they're going, hey, do you so-and-so, young 15-year-old boys, we're all going, no, filthy habit. And they said to this kid, do you? And he went, yeah, it's the most natural thing in the world. And I went, wow, that is so brave, yeah? And that's one of the stories in the book, because all the peacocks went, oh, you can sit with us from now on. And he went, no, I'm all right, thanks. And he blanked them. So that's in there, that's called, Are You Calling Me a So-and-So? We've got one called Sharp, which is based on someone you and I were friends with.
Okay.
And it's about a vulnerable kid. I've made it into fiction, but it's about a vulnerable guy who's kind of had enough. It's not based on me. And he gets a samurai sword and he goes down to the pub. And he's not threatening, but people are threatened by him because they know he's not wired right, and he's got this sword. And he's going, look at Sharp, isn't she beautiful? Isn't she sharp? And he said, feel my sharp. And they go, listen, we're gonna back away from the doors. And they all get out. And he says to himself, what's with all the sirens tonight? He said, there must be a game going on in town and they're all fighting. And then he goes, oh no, the sirens are for me. And so he tries to get home. Home, and he's hiding behind the wall. And his uncle comes to see him. And his uncle says, I've got to look after you again. So when this is done, give me your address and we'll send you a copy, and you can never read it. And that was kind of based on someone that we knew. There's other stuff like Splat, again, when I was 15. I think that's about four or 5 pages, that one. It's a short story about walking through school and feeling something on my head. I think, what the hell's that? That was my friends, and he was spitting at me. Spitting at the back of my head, and spitting, and I turned around and went, what? You're the few friends I've got. And it was like, don't tell anyone, we'll batter you. So I think they're all kind of stuff that wasn't from bullied, that happened to me, but stuff that happened to other people that we know, stuff that people I know personally. So that's British Warrior.
Available on like Amazon and things like that.
It's on Amazon, it's on Kindle. The 2 books separately, for Bullies, Black Belts and Everyday Warrior, they're on audiobook as well. This will be on Apple Books. I think it's next week or the week after it's coming out on Apple Books. And now what I'm working on now, it's a novel, a fictional book. It's called I Bully. And it's actually I Bully, and it's based on the guy I told you about at the beginning, where it's fictional, it's very, very fictional, but the character in it, Dominic Yates, is really the guy that came out with a knife.
Right.
And the guy who tormented me for all them months, because I was on a radio show, and the host, who listened to the story, he said, what, did you see the guy from, sorry, just let me backtrack, about 6-7 years later, I saw him. I delivered some stuff to his house, and he came out, and you know what, Dan, we were 2 different people. And
did he recognise you as well?
Oh yeah, and he apologised.
Wow, there you go.
And that's in there, an apology and forgiveness. That's in there as well, And he said, I was horrible to you when we were kids. And I said, yeah. And he said, we're both different now, aren't we? I said, yeah, we're both different. And he went, right. And he shook my hand, and he said, I'll help you unload your van. And a few months later, he took his own life. And that was like, wow, because he was a family man now. He was still not wired, right? He was still not. He was a family man. He had kids and he had a wife. And then when I was on the radio stations, they said to me, did you see him? And I tell them what I just told you.
Sure.
And they said, were you glad to hear that? And I said, no, not at all. I said, because, I don't know what had happened to make him the way he was. And that's just a dreadful, dreadful waste of life, because he was working. He had a house, he had a family,
Yeah.
You know, and apparently afterwards someone said, yeah, but he was still a bastard. And I said, well, I don't know that. All I saw was a man shake my hand and apologise and unload the van and give me a cup of tea.
Yeah.
So I can only say what I see, can't I? Yeah. So that's in there, apology and forgiveness. So going back to I Bully, Dominic Gates is based on that guy. And he's an alcoholic. And he's not wired right, and he's violent, and he hones in on a guy who's doing his best in life but is weak. And I suppose, if I'm honest, that's kind of maybe semi-based on me.
Yeah.
The guy's called Daniel. And in the end, Dominic realises what he's doing, and he realises the horror he's causing, the upset he's causing, the pain he's causing, and it's too late, and he can't get out of it. And he tries and tries and tries to change, but he can't. And I guess maybe if I'm honest, I probably think back to the guy, my nemesis, that's the right word.
Yeah.
And maybe I think that's probably how it happened with him, maybe. So that's I Bully. I'm hoping to get that out. What we know, it's probably going to be early next year now.
Yeah.
So
has things been slowed down because of the current situation, or has it kind of always been on?
Actually, no. Funny enough, British Warrior was planned for ages.
Yeah.
And it was only when we had COVID, right? And Julie, when you got time to write now.
Yeah.
Because we were teaching private lessons, classes like yourself.
Yeah.
We were teaching probably 30 hours a week, something like that, plus trying to train, plus trying to have your own life, plus trying to market, you know what it's all about.
Yeah.
So really, when I had all that time off, we did the online stuff of our students that wanted to do it. And that was 2 30-minute sessions a week.
Yeah.
And everyone was happy with that. So the rest of the time was getting this out there.
Brilliant.
So the current circumstances actually helped the process.
Helped it. Yeah.
Helped it. Yeah.
Obviously, linking with that, then I think obviously depression, suicide, things like that are on the rise at the moment, just because of the current situation. I think, and there's been a few people I've spoken to, again, mutual friends that we know. One of them was on last week that I was speaking to, that have had kind of a bit of a tricky time with it, just recently. So as someone that's kind of gone through it, what would be any words of advice that you could maybe say to people that are struggling at the moment, or are having, a bit of trouble dealing with what's going on around the world, I suppose?
Yeah, it's kind of easy to say, isn't it? But you have to try and stay positive. You have to try and, I suppose in a kind of selfish way, I'm quite comfortable in my home. I'm not agoraphobic anymore. I have my moments now and again, but I'm not agoraphobic where it doesn't bother me going out. Okay, sometimes if you're on a bit of a low, can't face that today. So I'm quite comfortable in my home. I'm extremely comfortable with Julie. We love each other's company. So I can't, I don't want to lecture to people who are struggling with that, because that's not fair of me to do that. Sure. But if it's a bigger picture, you try and stay positive. I'm a firm believer in reading and music. What you put in, you get out, don't you? And I listen to a lot of uplifting music, and I would suggest people do the same. I tell my students that. I've got somebody at the moment who's getting ready to take black belt, and she was with us for a long time and left pastures new and has come back to us recently. And I was telling her about, listen to this, make yourself, because she's opened her own club. I said, make yourself a playlist, because when you're driving down there, you and I know damn now that it's not an issue for us anymore. When we first opened our club, it's like, so make yourself a really, really positive playlist. Mine is Springsteen. Yeah. She went, never thought of that. Yeah. So I think it's the same for anyone. If you're struggling with depression, suicide, you read the positive books. British Warrior, no, I'm only messing. I'll tell you a great book to read if I can while I'm thinking on, people, whenever I'm a bit down, and it is brilliant, it's called The Kindness of Strangers.
The Kindness of Strangers.
Kindness of Strangers.
Make a note of that,
Yeah, it's an American guy, it's a true story, and he's called Michael McIntyre. And spelled just like a comedian as well, yeah?
Yeah.
True story. And he's in San Francisco and he's depressed. And he can't figure out why he's depressed. Got a great job, lovely car, lovely apartment, great girl. Doesn't know what's going on in his life, yeah? And I can't remember there's a deer. He sees a deer eating in the car park where he works. And he said, there's got to be more to it. And that deer triggers off something in him. So he goes to his girlfriend. He said, I'm going across America. And she went, oh, yeah. He said, without any money. And she went, you won't last. He said, no, I'm going to try it. He said, because there must be people out there who will help other people.
Yeah.
And he goes from San Francisco all the way to Cape Fear. Yeah. He's not allowed to touch money.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to borrow money.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to loan, to whatever. You can only rely on like someone putting him up for the night, someone giving him food. And the first one, he's at the ramp on the freeway. There's a guy there, and he's just come out of prison. And the guy says to him, "What's your story?" And he tells him, "I've just come out of prison." And the guy's got 2 sweets, 2 bars of candy. So the lad's looking at it, and he thinks, "I haven't got any food for tonight." So the guy from the criminal, if you like, the ex-convict, he said, "Listen, we're not going to do very well staying together." He said, "You have this spot." He said, "This is the best spot.
Yeah.
I'll go." So the author goes, No. He said, "I'll go." So he said, "That's his first act of kindness, yeah? This guy's just come out of prison, but he's given up his spot." So the guy next to him, the guy comes back around the corner, and he goes, "You haven't eaten?" He goes, "Have one of my sweets." And he gives him one of his sweets. And so the guy goes, "Wow, there are good people out there." Yeah. And the people he meets on the way. So whenever I'm feeling a bit down, I've got it here somewhere, I have a read of that. I think I've must have read it 50 times in my time, yeah? And that's what I tell people, read that. Yeah. You know, don't read, I love Stephen King, but when I'm at a bit of a low ebb, don't read Stephen King.
Probably not the best move, yeah.
They're not, are they? Stephen King and James Herbert, they're no-go.
Yeah.
So positive books, positive films, corny as anything, but the Rocky films. Yeah. One of the books I was telling you about, where there's a book called From Panic to Power, a girl called Lucinda Bassett, and it's how she was agoraphobic and depressed, what we all have. Yeah. And she wrote this book, and I was like, I read it on a plane in one go coming home from America, and it was like, what a book. And I recommend it to people all the while. But she says when she's fed up, if she's driving to work, she puts on Gonna Fly Now. You know the Rocky song, yeah?
Yeah.
He's running through the streets, and she goes, it gives her such a lift.
Yeah.
So whether that guy over there thinks that's corny, or that girl over there thinks it's rubbish, it doesn't matter because it worked for her. So she gets out that car like. So for people who are struggling, depression, whether it's the current situation or not, you try and stay positive.
Yeah.
I also, usually when we're doing the schools, the high schools, or the kind of youth clubs and youth centres, I think you get better at stuff. You get better at life by being confident. But you can only be confident. Some people are naturally confident. Some people, you look at them and you go, yeah, they got it. Some people aren't. Yeah. You can only become confident by doing things that are uncomfortable.
True.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I can go and I love Hollyoaks. I can go and put Hollyoaks on now, right? I'm not going to get anything from it. But if I go and do a weight session and a bag session in a minute, and you know, I'm tired today, then that gives me something. Yeah. So my going back years, my first act of bravery, if you like, was going into John Lynn's after all those years and saying, I'm going to train. I didn't really struggle with the training as much as I struggled down with being in the room with people.
Yeah.
I couldn't, my body was always in fight or flight.
Yeah.
So I remember saying to one of my kickboxing coaches, so I'm not very well, so I've got a blood disorder. And he's like, you haven't, you're lying. But it was all right, yeah? I said, sometimes I have to leave a room really quickly. And Dan, he knew, we didn't make an issue out of it. I said, can I stand by the door? That's constant fight or flight, yeah?
Yeah.
So when I went to John's, they went, no. And John wasn't being anything but, you know, he said, no, the white belts are down there. Now, the room was probably, I don't know, 50 yards, 50 foot. But to me, it seemed like a mile because the door was all the way over there.
Yeah.
But that first lesson, when I walked past everyone again, that was my first taste of confidence. So when we're teaching people who are down, don't do something that you can already do. Yeah, I mean, you plateau, you get to a point where I'm all right now.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for confidence, you've got to do stuff that frightens you a little bit.
Yeah.
It's fighting, it's training. For other people, it might be dancing, might be getting on the stage and singing. I got a friend who wants to be a stand-up comedian. He's not as funny as me, so he's not going to make it. You know, people who want to paint or decorate, if it's what you want to do, but it frightens you, if you do it, then you're like, yeah. And then we train, whatever we're training, the next 6 months after that. And you have to remember that. You have to draw on that confidence when you're down again.
Definitely.
If that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you so much, Simon.
No. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, no problem at all.
So I'll see you soon, shall I?
Definitely, yeah. It'd be good to catch up.
You come down to us.
Yeah, that'd be really good. When stuff gets back to normal and more training again, it'd be good to come around and see a few people and reconnect. So yeah, it'd be fantastic.
All right.
Okay, take care, Simon.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you too.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.